you that are customers, you'll probably be hearing from me quite a bit. Tonight we have the usual trio on here, plus we'll have some special guests. And I'm going to let our trio start with the introductions. They're going to introduce themselves, tell you a little bit about what's happening in their district this past week, and then we'll introduce our guests and have them come on. So welcome again. And as you know, our main goal with this channel is to provide some resources for our teachers. So thanks again for joining us, and we'll start with Chris.
Great. Thank you, Rich. Thanks again for setting this up and getting this all going. I know it takes a big burden on you to make this happen, so I want to thank you first and foremost. And then, of course, Brian and Brad for being here with me each week. My name's Chris Meckelberg. I'm an elementary phys ed teacher for the past 11 years in Rockville Center, New York. I've been teaching there K through 5 full-time since getting out of grad school. Ever since then, obviously, I've been deeply embedded with phys ed, and that's led us here to this day where we are going to have a great conversation tonight, open dialogue about what our latest and greatest is in phys ed with relations to this new distance learning. We have some great new features tonight that we also have going on. Just for a little update in New York, my phys ed team and I have been planning since Friday, just like Brian will enlighten us a little bit on his phys ed app that he's created through Glide Apps. We did the same thing as a department Friday and Saturday and turned that around out by Tuesday in order to get that in front of our administration. That's long-term planning for the month of May and June at this point. Currently, our last scheduled day is June 25th in New York. The governor has canceled all the regents exams, so now really we have no more standardized testing that's expected in the state to go on in person in the schools over the next few weeks. So that's all been wiped out, and he's going at a 2-week pace now with closing the schools. We're now officially closed till April 30th, but like I said, my district is planning for a lot longer, if not the end of the year. I know currently I'm in Pennsylvania. They just canceled class and school for the year officially. And I believe California did as well last week about this time of our broadcast. So that's a little update here from New York. And I'll turn it over to Brian to get us into a little bit about what he's been doing.
Hey guys, so quick introduction. My name is Brian Hull. I'm a 6th through 12th grade phys ed teacher out in Denver, Colorado. I'm very humbled to announce I was the 2018 Shape Colorado High School Teacher of the Year, along with the 2020 Shape America Central District High School Teacher of the Year. This is my 8th year of teaching, and of course, I'm in the same boat as everybody else. I've never had to deal with something like this, teaching my students virtually and trying to be really creative and unique with delivering my instruction as authentic as I can. So tonight I wanted to take just a brief minute. I've really been passionate about creating a secondary folder of resources via Google Drive that I've shared immensely through Facebook and Twitter. And I'm going to share that link with you tonight. So if you find yourself kind of stuck in a hole and you don't really know what activities you should be representing to your students, or you're kind of just stuck in a place where I don't really know what I should be sharing with my students in terms of curriculum, there's a lot of good stuff in there that I've shared personally and what I've grabbed from other phenomenal physical educators basically in the world. And like I said, there's health lessons in there, there's phys ed curriculum ideas in there, there's physical activity exercises you can do, there's health projects you could do, and so on. But yeah, that's it for me in terms of who I am. Out here in Denver, unfortunately, our governor announced that schools will be shut down for the remainder of this school year. So all learning will take place virtually and online through the end of May, about May 30th. So I've heard there's about 18 states now who just basically can the school year in terms of opening up their schools. Colorado is one of the most recent ones, along with Pennsylvania. And again, like I said, tonight we hope to help everybody out who's listening, who's engaged, on maybe some ideas and resources you could use.
Hey, great, Brian. Thanks a lot. Brad?
Yeah, I'm Brad Hall. I am my brother's worse half. He's the better half, of course. I'm gonna make this quick because he said it all. So yeah, Colorado is definitely through the end of the year is pure remote learning. So it's definitely a learning curve for everybody. And the folder my brother created is definitely a tremendous resource along with his app. And hopefully tonight could be full of learning.
Awesome.
Okay, great. I'm going to
Brian,
just
share that
stop for a
screen with us.
second, Chris. Just hold off here.
Sure.
We have a giveaway tonight, and if you see up on the screen, it's small right now. But to enter the giveaway, all you have to do is enter your email in the chat, and you'll be eligible. And then at the end of the night, we will have a drawing. We'll have our guests just select a number, and if they select, for example, 7 on the list, and you're 7th person that entered their email, then you will win we'll send you a high HTTP 2.0 sensor that you'll be able to use with a lot of many different apps. And next week, in fact, we're going to be talking about our Singulus app that's in the App Store that you'll be able to use with the sensor. We'll get into that a little bit more in depth. So don't hesitate to, when you in the comment section, just enter your email. Also, I know we've got some requests for, let me just hide this here. We've got some requests for certificates for attending our YouTube live session. So just email me at rich@hottechtrust.com, and I'll send you the form that you can fill out, and you can get professional development points for viewing the stream. You could get those either by viewing it later on, because we'll be on our YouTube channel, or in the live stream. Of course, make sure you check with your state association to see what is acceptable in terms of professional development hours. But we thought we'd provide that, and hopefully you can make good use of it. Okay, I'm going to turn it back to Chris, and I think he's going to we're going to see if we can get Jordan on the line here. Chris?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rich. And thanks so much for working so hard getting all that stuff together. I know
Thanks, Rich.
it's a little different in each state, but I'm sure give an outlet, have people show that they watched an hour of professional development. This is obviously pertinent to our profession right now. Everything should be justifiable, and I would think that would suffice for any district coordinator for professional development hours. I know tonight we have a great guest coming in, Jordan Stolp from Gopher Sport, and I know Gopher's been running some Twitter live, so check out Twitter if you're not on Twitter already. Follow all of us, but especially Jordan and Gopher as they're going Twitter live with all their different products that have come out recently in their catalogs. So I wanted to invite him in here tonight and really just talk about any way that you see yourself as Gopher helping educators during this time, anything that we can really pick your brain for to try and make it through these unsteady waters that we are not used to. Oh, hold on. We still don't have audio there coming.
Can you hear us, Jordan?
He can hear us.
Okay, we can't hear you.
I hear something now. No.
Well, Jordan, when you work on that, and what we'll do is we're going to go to Brian. Brian, can you talk about your app and
Yeah,
while we try to
absolutely.
get technical difficulties worked out?
Yeah, sure. So, while we figure out the technical difficulties, I'm just going to share with you the secondary resource folder that I am sharing with anybody who's interested in. It's a Google link along with an Glide app that I recently created this past weekend, full of resources not only students across the country could use, but also what other fellow teachers can use. So I'm going to share my screen with everybody real quick. If you could put my screen to live, Rich.
Yep. I've got to remove somebody here. Just a second. I'm going to move Brian. Brad, I mean.
You can remove all of us except the screen.
Okay. Okay. Could you show your screen again, Brian?
Yep, it's just waiting to go live.
Waiting for me. Okay. There we go. Gotcha. I did now?
Yep. So
Okay.
if everybody can see my screen, so this is the app that I created, and the URL to that is brucepe.glideapp.io. And I will go ahead and put this in the public chat once I'm finished, so it will be available at everybody's convenience and reference. But basically on this app, there is about 10 different tabs that you can go to, but the main ones I think teachers and students would really take advantage of is the warm-up tab, the workouts tab, the fitness plans tab, and up here in the top left, if you hit it, there is also a health resources and a home packets tab. And I have it set to where all you do is just click on a tab on your phone, and once you click it, a link will pop up, and all you got to do is just click the link, and a folder through my Google Drive pops up, and that will be available to anybody who thinks they need some extra fitness or exercise ideas or some cool and unique innovative warm-up ideas. But this is a very good resource. This is something I'm using with my students almost every day, and the students have given me excellent feedback on it, along with other phys ed teachers I know who downloaded this app and just added it to their home screen on their iPhone or Android phone. So again, the URL to my app is brucepe.glideapp.io. And lastly, if you can still see my screen, this is the and Rich, is this showing up on the screen?
You have another one?
Yeah, do you see my Word document?
No, I'm going to hide this one. And do you have that one ready to go?
Yes, I will put it up right now. Just a second. Okay, go ahead and put me live. So everybody should be able to see just a Microsoft Word document, and this is the link to my massive Google folder for secondary teachers. It's just tinyurl.com/secondary HPE at home. And if you click the link, you will see just a huge amount of resources. And I'm actually just going to go through it this way here, just because my Google Chrome browser needs updated. And Rich, I'm assuming everybody can see my screen right now?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So Google is a little slow right now, but so this is the folder that I have shared with everybody who's interested. There is just a wide variety of resources that are basically turnkey for teachers and students across the globe. And Google is slow right now, but If you go to this URL here, once the traffic comes down, you will be able to see everything I have to offer in there. And I do want to share a lot of the stuff in there isn't my work, but I've gotten permission from a lot of great PE teachers and current or former Shape America Teachers of the Year who have been generous enough to let me share their resources in this big folder as well. So it's really well organized. It makes me feel really good if I know more teachers than the ones who's currently using this are starting to use this. This is out here for you. It's helping me a lot, so I thought it would help others as well.
Awesome.
And
Awesome,
I will
Brian.
go ahead and put the links into the public chat.
Great. Very good. Okay, so we're gonna go put Chris. How are we doing with Jordan? Okay, I'll
We
give
have a
him
better luck.
Yes, awesome.
All right.
There we go.
Awesome, Jordan.
All right, we're back. So first and foremost, I want to just let everybody know that we're thinking about you. We hope that everybody that's involved in this YouTube live, whether you're presenting or you're just listening or watching the recording, that you're safe and healthy. Your friends, your family, everybody's safe and healthy. So just wanted to get that out first and foremost. Secondly, I want to thank Rich and HeartTech Plus for the opportunity, and then Chris Mecklenburg, obviously, for reaching out to me for this opportunity to be a part of this YouTube live show on behalf of Gopher. We're very excited, with the things that we're doing for teachers these days during the distance learning period that all of you are facing. So we've got some great resources that I'll share with you here tonight, and hopefully you can take those and implement those with your programs. Just wanted to also reiterate that, during these times, we definitely are thinking of you teachers. And I know when I speak for myself, I also speak on behalf of Gopher, that we understand that these are definitely challenging times for everybody involved. And I think the unique thing about this is it's not just one area of the country, it's literally the whole world is going through this at the same time. So we're all in this together. We're all going to come out of this together. And I think at the end, we're going to be better because of it. So keep fighting and we'll get through it. And also with that, I think one thing that I know I've heard from our governor here in Minnesota speak on, and maybe it's because he's a former teacher, but is the appreciation that we have for teachers. And I think that parents now when they're home with their kids throughout the day and they're helping implement this distance learning, I think that they're gaining a new sense of appreciation for what teachers do and the undervalue that teachers may have in society. So I think that we're all gaining new appreciation for teachers in our world. So thanks for everything that you do. And I know myself, I've got a 5-year-old daughter that's in kindergarten, and I know she has the opportunity to video chat with her classroom and her teacher and her classmates, and you can just sense that teachers are missing their students. They miss being in school, in the classroom, in the gymnasium. So thanks for your efforts and everything that you're doing to help the students get through this as well.
I really appreciate you being here tonight, Jordan, and I think everyone on the team here, feels the same way as you, and that's why we look really at Gopher as being the gold standard when it comes to anything phys ed wise. So thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, and I think when everything kind of came into effect, it came fast, and here at Gopher, we kind of sat down and we said, what can we do to help in this situation? And I think as a business, obviously you want to get orders and fulfill orders and things like that, but kind of took a step back and we said, what's the right thing to do and what's the most important thing to do? And that was to be a resource and provide free resources for teachers during these times. So that's what we've done. I'll get into some of those and I'll share a number of those that we've offered. But we want to continue to be resources. So if there's questions that you as teachers have, don't hesitate to reach out to us. I'll share my contact information regardless of where you are in the country. I cover New York and Florida, but I more than happy to answer any questions or share it with your direct sales manager, and they are more than happy to answer questions and help you out in any way that we can during this. So I don't know, Rich or Chris, if you have controls, if I'm able
Yeah.
to share my screen, or
Just-
what's the...
Yeah, just top right, it should be a button.
Top right. Become a
left.
host.
I'm sorry, left. Yeah.
Share screen. There we go. All right. So just a moment here while I get the correct page up here, but we've kind of put together a hub, a central hub, if you will, for our at-home learning resources. And here's kind of what we've got together. The first one here, and I'll touch on each of these very briefly. I know that there's a lot of other topics that you guys want to hear about today from the others involved. So PE Huddle, this is a weekly live webinar with Dr. Pangrazi. All of you probably know Dr. Pangrazi's name surrounding physical education, one of the most well-respected people in the industry. So he's done a weekly webinar. Today, it's Thursdays at 2 p.m. Central Standard, or I'm sorry, 3 p.m. Sorry, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. I'm getting everything mixed up because Chris and everybody are on the East Coast communicating their times, and I'm in the Central. So it's 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. Goes for an hour. It's every Thursday. Last week, it was Aaron Beatley from the University of Kentucky. And then today we had Maria Court from Mesa High School in Mesa, Arizona. And then next week, it's going to be Chris Nichols from Texas. And they are just kind of going through various topics surrounding physical education. Obviously a great resource. And the one unique thing with that is there are opportunities for continuing ed credits with that. So if you sign in, whether you watch it live or you watch the recording, you can get continuing ed credits for that. The next one that we have here is our Active Home Challenge. And every day we're uploading an Active Home Challenge. These are oftentimes shared through Twitter and then updated onto our website here. These are very, very quick, easy, simple challenges that you can do with your students, with your family at home. So all of these resources can be shared with students and their parents or their guardians if they want additional things that they can go and check out. So it looks like today Aaron Beatley had shared one for us about Dr. Pangrazi yesterday, Jessica Shawley, another one of our consultants earlier this week. And I think if we go back far enough, Ross, there we go, last Tuesday on March 31st. So Ross was part of it as well. So again, daily challenges for students to do, simple things for them to do at home. So that's a great one that's updated daily. This next one is our Gopher Live, and the Gopher Live. So as sales managers, one of my favorite things to do is to get out into our markets and be face-to-face with our teachers and build relationships, have you guys see our products firsthand, get your hands on them. And obviously, given the situation, that's just something that we can't do right now. So Gopher Live was put in place. We've had 2 weeks now with episodes, and Adam and Andy from our sales team have done a great job. They both live in the same town, so they've been able to use Andy's garage as kind of a studio, if you will. And they've just kind of gone through some of our new products, some of our favorite products that we like to share with customers, how the products are used, kind of give you an up close, almost like as if a virtual booth, if you will. So it's just a way for us to, again, get in front of customers, have you see our new products and some great things. And then yesterday, what they did was they took some of our products and then had variables, so things around the house that would kind of mimic or be similar to what our product is and how you can use them and just get by with what you have at home. So that's another one that is on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Hey, Jordan.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but could you try to share your screen again? It's not coming up as an option.
It's not sharing anymore?
Well, I don't think it was in the beginning, but
Oh.
just hit that share screen again. You were doing so well, I hated to interrupt you.
Let's see here. It's asking me to add an extension to Chrome here. Let's see. I don't know if that'll work or not. So I have a link. Let me see if I can.
You know, the other option is to, if you can share the link in the chat, that would be another way of, these people would have it.
And I'm not even seeing a text box for the to be able to type anything into that chat.
Down the bottom?
Here, what
I'll
I'll do. Yeah, there's nothing for me to type down there. What I can do is let me email you quickly.
Okay.
Do you have access to your email? And if you want to share that link.
Sure.
All right. And Chris, I'm sending it to you as well. But that should be the link to the, oh no, I'm sorry. Yeah, that should be the at-home resources link.
Okay. You sent it to Chris? I got it.
Oh,
yep.
Nope, sorry.
Perfect.
I'm sending a new one. Sorry about that. The last one was just the single Gopher Live. So that next one's going to be the hub that's going to have all the at-home resources.
Okay.
Let me know once you have it.
Yeah. I'm gonna hang on a second, and I'm gonna share this.
And Rich, if you want, I'll continue on.
Yeah.
At least kind of talking about these. I know I've got a few more other things, and then a couple other things that I wanted to talk on before we go on.
Yeah,
So
I got the screen come up now. It should show.
okay. There we go. Yeah, so that's the PE huddle option. That's the one with Dr. Robert Pangrazi. And then if you, Rich, would go back to that central hub.
Yeah, the blog one. Yeah.
There we go. So that's the Gopher Live. Did you get the second link that I sent?
Hang on. That is the other one. I've got two. Wait a minute. Okay.
There should be one that's at the end. It says at-home learning resources.
Oh, I got it. Okay. Hang on a second. I think I failed my director's course. Now, let me try it again. Okay. At home.
I see the comments on here as you're going through there. I see we've got another Vikings fan down in looks like in Colorado. They see my basement here.
When I click on that, Jordan, this is what comes up. I got it. Okay. Is this what you're looking for?
So that's at least what I'm seeing on the screen that you're sharing is just a Gopher Live. There should be one that's a full at-home learning resources. It's like a hub that has all of our
daily active home challenges. Let's see.
Yeah, because that one, what I'm seeing there is all of our Gopher Live stuff. And I can't make out what the web address is that you're sharing there. So if you, it should be gophersport.com/blog
Okay. And what?
@/home-learning-resources / anything after that can be deleted.
Oh. No, I can't. I'm sorry. I'm having trouble pulling up the right one.
What I can do, Rich, is I can share, once this is posted onto the YouTube page, I can go in there and add the link in the comments if you'd like.
Sure.
And make sure that everyone has access to it. And like I said, if people have questions, since I was having trouble sharing the page, maybe I'll get it in the hands of you and Chris, but you guys will have my contact information and feel free to share that with everybody. Again, if they have questions, comments or concerns or anything like that, don't hesitate to reach out to me. But just a few other of our at-home resources. PE Universe is one that's been around for a long time, and that's kind of a sharing page where you as teachers can share videos, upload videos, and just kind of see things that everyone in the community is doing. So it's a kind of a, it's not really a social media type thing, but it is a sharing page for videos and resources to be used. Then we have an active home challenge. So we have the active home challenge that's out daily that I mentioned earlier, that Ross was a part of last week. Those are easy, simple activities. Then we also have an active home challenge skill cards and posters. And that is a lot of our activity cards that we offer in sets, whether it be kettlebells, dumbbells, basketballs. So these are going to be things following those cards and activities for those cards. And then in those, if let's say we're doing dumbbell exercises, it's obviously going to have everything for the dumbbells. And then what we've added at the bottom of that is,
how's this?
There it is. There it is. Yeah, perfect. So
Sorry.
no problem. Thanks, Rich. So in the bottom left, I'm on the active home challenge portion, the skill cards and posters, discussing that. But on the bottom of those pages, we've got the lessons or the activities using the materials or the equipment, the kettlebells, the dumbbells, and then in the bottom of that page, there'll be a alternative. So instead of using a kettlebell, you don't have a kettlebell at home, maybe you're using a milk jug or you know, an orange juice container or something, a plastic bag with some cans of soup in them or something like that to mimic a kettlebell for those activities. So we've got alternatives that you can use to be a little bit more resourceful at home with your students. Then the next one is our Spark Home. So if you scroll up, or yeah, go back and then go to Spark Home. Spark's doing some great things. Many of you know Spark has been around for a number of years, and last year we became the sole provider of Sparks, which we're excited about. So the Spark Home and the Spark Academy are a few things that have some free resources. Spark Home has a number of videos, programs, lesson plans that we're offering for free. And then the Spark Academy is some free professional development opportunities that you can use and show to your supervisors what you're doing for, you know, professional development during this to help with e-learning and things of that nature. So, and then if you want to go back again, Rich, we'll get to the Dynamic PE ASAP resource. And this is another one from Dr. Pangrazi. So Dr. Pangrazi, and then along with Aaron Beatley, had published dynamic PE textbooks, and for a number of years they had different versions that came out surrounding curriculum for physical education. And it was probably about a year, maybe 2 years ago, Dr. Pangrazi decided what better way for him to give back to a community that had given him so much than to provide his dynamic PE curriculum free of charge. So we worked closely with him and put this out on the website. So you can kind of go in there and drag and drop and kind of create your own lesson plans. Tons of different resources through Dynamic PE ASAP for you to use with your students. And then if you go back to that homepage, Rich, the last thing there is the equipment replacement list. And this is just kind of a simple suggestion of different things that you can use around the house to replace products or equipment that you would use in a physical education setting. So for example, activity balls, use socks, crumpled recycled paper, stuffed animals, agility dot drill mat, sidewalk chalk, electrical tape, painter's tape, sticky notes. So just a variety of different pieces of equipment, and then a number of household items that you can use to mimic those. So that's what we have for free resources. Again, we wanted to try in any way to give back to teachers during this time, and provide them with things that were going to help them, because I think as Brian and Brad had mentioned, we're all in this new time that nobody, whether you've been teaching for 50 years or this is your first year, you've never seen anything like this. So we wanted to give back. I would just encourage everybody to, if you're looking for things, use social media, use Twitter. There's tons of great things out there when you're searching for hashtags. You've got a number of great resources here presenting tonight that you can follow on social media and use their resources and connect with them. So definitely encourage you to do that. I also wanted to touch base on a few other things as well before I turn the microphone back over to the other guys. But as far as the equipment goes, we were very fortunate here at Gopher to be deemed an essential business by our governor. We are in a stay-at-home, we have a stay-at-home order until it was just extended yesterday through May 4th. So our students at the earliest would be going back May 5th, which I think we're all pretty confident that it'll be extended through the end of the year, but that remains to be seen. So at Gopher, we are very fortunate. We have a number of brands, and some of those brands ship to childcare providers, which are essential businesses, military bases, hospitals, and things like that. So because we ship to customers that are essential businesses, we were deemed an essential business. So we're very fortunate to allow us to keep our doors open and keep operating. That being said, we are shipping equipment. So I know that this time of year is typically a very busy time for you as physical education teachers and physical education professionals, whether you're trying to close out your budget for the 2019-2020 school year that needs to be spent by June 30th, or whether you're planning ahead for next school year and you have to have your recs in to your purchasers or your bookkeepers. We're here to help with quotes, process any orders if there are any for you, or provide equipment for you and your parents, your students at home. We can definitely help out in any way possible. If we need to ship equipment to houses for students to use, we definitely can do that. If you're able to ship to a central location and have students come up and pick up jump ropes and things like that, we definitely can help in that regard as well. And then that being said, too, one of the biggest things that we're hearing from teachers is, hey, we've got to place this order, but nobody's at the school to receive the equipment. So one thing that we can do in that regards too is we can hold the equipment. So if there's a tentative date that you're coming back, we can put a ship after date and schedule a shipment to deliver on that date, or check with you to see if anything's changed, if your stay at home or your remote learning was extended and we need to push that date out, we can definitely do that. We're really flexible when it comes to shipping the equipment for you. Again, doing whatever we can to help you guys out. So we are able to ship. And then the last thing that I want to touch on before I turn it back is some of our other brands. So one area that we have seen a major increase in some record numbers as far as number of orders go is our consumer market. Many of you probably have gym memberships, or you use the facilities at your schools for working out, and now you can't. So those people in the market, gym owners, parents, you, me, anybody at home, wants kettlebells, they want dumbbells, they want things like that. So our Gopher brand, our catalog, and then we have our Gopher Performance catalog, which is a smaller catalog geared more towards strength conditioning. We've seen a record number of orders for those types of products. So we're shipping those out at a very quick rate. So Gopher and Gopher Performance are two of our brands. We also have Moving Minds, which is a brand geared towards classroom active furniture, staying active in the classroom. So this would be things like wobble chairs, stand-up desks, pedal desks, things like that. If you're like me and your son or daughter is at home now, you needed a desk space for them, whether they're sitting at the kitchen table, or you just want something where they're going to be able to kind of sway around and rock around and kind of fidget a little bit. We've got some cool stuff for you, and a lot of stuff at a very reasonable price as well. So check out Moving Minds, or share that with your parents as well. STEM Supplies is a STEM catalog: science, technology, engineering, math, a lot of cool products there. Play with a Purpose is geared more towards early childhood. That is your daycare centers, early childhood care centers, playgrounds, active furniture, again, things like that. So Dramatic Play, a lot of cool stuff there for if you have a child that's going to daycare and they need supplies, we definitely can help them with that. And then lastly, I kind of touched on it earlier as one of the free resources, but Spark, if you guys are looking for curriculum or anything like that, check out our Spark page as well. So with that being said, I want to again, thank Chris, thank Rich for allowing me to have the opportunity to speak to you guys. Hopefully you found some value in it. I'll be sure to share the website and the resources on the YouTube page after this is posted. Again, if you have questions, I'll probably share my contact information on there as well, just so it's easy for everybody to find. Don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'd be happy to put you in touch with your direct sales manager. But again, thanks so much for the opportunity, Chris, Rich, and then everybody listening or watching. I really appreciate what you're doing out there. It definitely is not going unnoticed by us here at Gopher, and keep doing what you're doing. And I look forward to getting back out into the market and seeing you guys at some trade shows down the road.
Okay, John, we're not going to let you go quite yet. Just hang on there,
right.
okay?
All right.
We have a star in the adaptive world of phys ed in the chat. And he's asking, not to put you on the spot, but he's asking about resources for adaptive PE.
Yeah, great question. I think that I'd have to look a little bit deeper to see specific examples within those at-home resources for adaptive. One thing that I do know is physical education teachers are some of the most creative people that I've ever come in contact with. When I've gone out to conferences and I've demonstrated a product or something like that, they'll come up to me and they'll say, I've taken this product and I've done this with it, or this is how I play the game, or I've taken this one activity or this one game and I've made 10 games out of it. So I'm sorry that I don't have a great answer for that specific question, but I would just say use your resources as far as like Twitter. I'm sure that there's a lot of resources on that. I know we have a very small portion of adaptive PE equipment in our catalog. But if they want to share their information with you, Rich, and you want to pass that along to me, I'd be more than happy to look into that a little bit further and see if I can't get some resources in their hands for them.
Great. And Brian Wickerin from Denver, actually from Jeffco, the same district that Brad worked in, is a teacher of the year in the adaptive world, and he would be a great resource for Gopher as well. So we
Yeah.
connect the two.
And I know Andy Tupy, who was my former manager and colleague, he is the Colorado regional sales manager, and I believe he's on here watching as well. So he can definitely get in touch. I think he's probably got Brian's contact information, but I see it there, the Jeffco email address. So we'll definitely get in touch and try to get some of those resources.
Awesome.
Brian, Brian was actually on last week with us and had a great conversation about his adapted PE program that he has there in Jeffco. And obviously he's a teacher of the year and one of the best. He mentioned there, obviously he's a Vikings fan like you, but he also mentioned there Minnesota has a top-notch adapted PE. And I think that's Lisa Smith, who does a lot in Minnesota there. She's a former scholar with Ross and myself. So anytime you have that integrated PE and adapted PE portion together, that's really what a lot of districts are moving towards now, that integration.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to let you get back to your family, Brian, and
All right.
we really appreciate taking the time to be with us tonight.
Absolutely.
Thank
Thanks for the opportunity. Take
Thanks
care,
so much,
everybody.
Jordan.
Stay
I
safe
know.
and healthy.
You too.
Yeah, you too. You too.
Awesome.
Okay, guys, there was some great resources there.
Just a quick reminder, Rich is giving away a HeartTech Sensor 2.0. So if you're here listening and haven't put your email in the comment box yet, so far Brian is leading the way to get that sensor. And I am pleased and happy and excited to welcome Dr. Chad Killian from Georgia State University. Hopefully it's a little warmer there than it is here, but thanks for being on with us today.
Oh boy.
We don't have audio on.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Good.
Got to stick with tradition with every other phone call to do that, you know? Yeah, I wore my flannel so you guys wouldn't be jealous that it was 80 degrees today.
Very jealous, very jealous. And Dr. Killian got in contact with us. He was listening last week. Thank you for your support last week. And he's good friends with Daniel Govrish in the chat. And Dan has been raving about your area of expertise in this new time that we're in the digital world. And that is the bane of your research that you've been working on pretty much through your doctoral studies and then after. And I think you hosted or were one of the panelists on a conversation today that took place across the Pete and the heat world of higher ed. So really anything you want to talk about, the floor is yours. And we thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Any friend of Dan's is a friend of mine, you know? That's one of the good guys there. Yeah, I mean, we can start really anywhere. This is just a fascinating experience. And, you know, as a researcher of this, it's sort of the perspective that I have is maybe a more objective perspective. And so before we even get into that, you know, we need to acknowledge that this is an incredible time. Obviously, unprecedented is sort of the word that we've been using, and it really is. And depending where you are, many of us are experiencing outcomes, whether it's sickness, people losing their jobs, and so forth. So, you know, there's a lot of human aspect of this, but from a research standpoint, it's an unbelievable natural experience happening before our eyes across multiple sectors, and we're experiencing that right now as physical education teachers. I'm fortunate enough to be in faculty right now, so the experience that I have is a little bit different from you all. I used to teach elementary in Pennsylvania, 5 years, Central PA. So I'm just thankful for the opportunity to talk to you guys on the ground, because it's definitely, I mean, I can't imagine what it's like. I mean, how are you guys doing?
I think to this point in my district, if I could sum it up, probably what would take 8 to 10 months in the public school sector as far as rolling something out appropriately in a professional learning community way and all of that. We're doing that in about the last 10 days. We did that at 10 days.
Yeah.
So all of the heartaches that go along with that, the stresses that go along with that from the teacher end, and then for us as teachers, and probably less so maybe the phys ed staff that might be listening, but for the classroom teachers, all of that content they would normally be delivering now needs to still be delivered, but in a digitized format. And in phys ed to that extent as well. So it's really been unprecedented, and you know, everyone's really bursting at the seams at this point from what is expected, required, and now moving forward with possibly for another 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, and maybe related to some of the research, the fortunate thing is I think the high school age teachers and especially the classroom teachers have a broader base of evidence to draw from. You know, there's very little even general research, let alone in physical education, what effective teaching looks like within an online or distance learning format. And, you know, effectiveness is probably secondary to just continuity, but there's not a lot out there that can really drive this. And so I think the role of the teacher and the approach that everybody can take as possible is, you know, as an action research. Given the lack of evidence of what effective practice is, I think we can use the experiences that we're all having to really determine what that actually is at this point for your students. And so I think that could be a point of encouragement. You can't mess it up because you're not going to violate any evidence. You know what I mean? So it's like,
Exactly.
so ask the question, it's
Yep.
like, what do my students need right now? And what's manageable for me to be able to provide that and find the balance in between?
It is a time for great experimentation. You can take risks now that you really could never before. And now I think also what you're going to see is the stark divide between those who will continue to learn and grow in the profession and learn something new like the technology, and those who cannot budge on it. And we don't know where we're going to come out of this and what everybody's role or place is going to be when we come out of this. So you have to, if you're in the position now, you have to kind of take that on board and be willing to roll with it. But many people are not. So those people are
Yep.
definitely going to be looked down on in the upcoming weeks.
Yeah, and in some ways, a luxury of being in higher ed and looking sort of at the K-12 environment. You know, we're not experiencing the day to day, but I'm just really concerned that, you know, and rightfully so, teachers need to survive this and get through it. But in the back of my mind, we can't really assume that this is the last time that anything like this will happen. And we're already hearing about localized extended school closures. One report I think said even into 2022, and even beyond that. It's like, with sort of as epidemiology science sort of permeates the general public, we become more aware of the dangers of flu and the dangers of these sicknesses. And it's like, well, maybe it does make sense to shut the schools down. Whether or not it does is up to the administrators, but if there's any possible way to synthesize anything that we're doing right now and able to use it in the event that this would happen again, knock on wood that it doesn't, but we can maybe plan for a little bit of the future. Yeah.
Well, you would think almost flu is cyclical. If we look at the flu numbers overall, you know, they're very comparable to what we're seeing now. So if there's a cyclical nature to this and everyone's planning for an organized shutdown for a month or two, obviously the world of education is going to change forever. But I know with the, you know, the good parts about technology is you can actually see teachers over in China. So specifically, my wife follows a art teacher in Wuhan. So they were obviously out for a number of months, came back for a week and a half, had to go back out again for a second wave that came of illness, and now they're back a third time or second time now, but the new protocol is face masks and gloves for everybody in the buildings. So that's the new protocol. Is that something that's a protocol during a certain time each year, or does it go further than that after this? You know, we don't know.
Yeah, the future is really uncertain at this point, but, you know, thinking from like the strategic planning and, you know, this is just speculation, of course, but, you know, at the college level, at least, I could envision administrators requiring a 5 to even a full semester online backup, you know, to preserve continuity of education. And then, you know, as that trickles down, what's the baseline expectation going to be for you all moving forward, to be able to teach online, and then what does that mean for teacher education? You know, I think there's a reasonable case to be made that every teacher who graduates should be able to teach some level of effectiveness online or in a remote setting, whatever that looks like. And so, you know, we're still really soon in this, and there's a lot to figure out, but, you know, where I'm at, that's kind of where my brain goes, is like, what are your administrators going to tell you when you come back in August? It's like, all right, we're going to plan the year and it's got to be online because we don't know when we're going to, you know, that's extreme, but like, what is that going to look like?
Yeah.
Of course.
Hey,
And that-
Chad, we have a couple of questions I'd like to, maybe you could address. And there's one from Shannon. I'll put it up on the screen, from Shannon Pennington.
Yeah, that's a good question. So in some ways, I think that this rapid transition to online learning is a great equalizer in some ways. And so, we have a similar conversation to what's going on in the PE Twitter, the K to 12. A lot of people are new to this. A lot of people are asking questions about how to address their students. And obviously, teacher education is a little bit different than, K to 12 physical education setting. But, there are very distinct challenges to teacher certification. We all student taught. How many teachers just got interrupted student teaching? Our junior field experiences in Pennsylvania, our whole junior year was in the schools Tuesdays and Thursdays from 8 till 12 and seminar after.
I just got done with a student observer, and luckily she made it. That last Friday was her last day that she needed the elementary hours, but she was set to go to secondary this whole time.
Wow.
And I know, like in New York, the governor has now made an exception for med students who are about to graduate. They're able to begin practicing without residency. I mean, that's a drastic step for medical doctors in that field, and that's happening right now to try and save lives. So we're talking about education here, and obviously those people that are on the cusp need to be moved forward at this point.
Yeah, and that there's a lot of downstream, outcomes that could happen as a result of that. I think, especially talking to so many quality teachers here, I'm sure that you're responsible for hosting field experiences. And so I think, the vibe, to speak to Shannon's question, is we're coming together as a community, and we see the PE community coming together, and we see the PEAT community coming together. And I'd like to see them all come together and break down sort of the higher ed practitioner sort of chasm, so to speak. You all, and when I was teaching, used technology, and I think a lot of the PEAT folks could benefit and would value insight about how to get creative about continuing field placements, or what the role of a cooperating teacher could look like in a remote setting. Because I'm sure most people just cut the field experience, required a digital, task presentation, and there was very little communication between cooperating teachers in the field and teachers in the undergraduate programs. But I think this experience provides space for creativity. It provides a little bit of humility across, the practice, and hopefully, I would hope that we can have more lines of communication open. So the overall vibe, just to kind of summarize, is very positive. I think people want to come together. People want to work together. People are interested and thinking about and willing to consider things that they may not have considered 3 weeks ago, just because we see how caught off guard we actually were, all of us. And that's nothing to be ashamed of, because who the heck could have predicted this?
Of course. And I see Dan mentioned that Shannon is working with you on your team to create PE modules. I know I saw you share one recently on Twitter, if not today. You want to go a little more into that? Even if you wanted to share it on the screen, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure.
They're excellent, by the way.
What's that?
I said they're excellent, by the way. I'm actually using your module 1 this week with my students.
Nice. Thanks, man.
Yeah, they're great.
That's kind of a meta project, if we want to get a little meta right now. So, number one, I was in a position to be able to sort of think a little differently. My wife stays at home with my 2-year-old, so she's been very supportive in allowing me to sort of think deeply about this and spend some time on this. But it really gets down to, first and foremost, what the role of a teacher educator is in this environment. So when you think about sort of scholarship, it tends to be a timely process. Just speaking basically, when you create a manuscript based on data, you might collect data for 6 months. It might take you another 2 or 3 months to write a manuscript. It might take another 6 months to get peer reviewed. And then 3 months after that, it might get published. And so that's like a 18-month process where maybe 15 people will read an article if it's really nice. There might be more, and then different research has different impacts, but it's a long process. I'm concerned about our ability to support the field in a time of rapid need. I could sit around and write philosophical articles about, the socialization and the philosophy that we're approached with, And 2 years from now, when it gets published, it will have helped nobody. So what I wanted to do, and what I'm happy that Shannon and Shelby were interested in supporting, was supporting teachers now. And it had a multiple sort of rationale. So for me, it's to help teachers, but ultimately it's to help the students. Okay. It's not embarrassing to admit that most of us were unprepared to do this. I've thought about this a couple years, and so I am in a little bit better position to be able to create something that's based on a little bit of evidence. I've got some pilot data that a lot of this stuff is based on. Number two is I hate technology. Like, I just research it. And so this is an opportunity for me to learn how to use technology, to experience what it might be like, at least developing content. So it had a personal motivation. And so helping students, being in a position to be able to do this, helping students, helping teachers, learning for myself, I think was the motivation behind it. So, and also a little bit of the training that we had at the University of Illinois is heavily focused on exercise psychology and outcomes related to physical activity, which I think a lot of us, myself included as an undergrad, ignored because we didn't see how that related to what we did. So in some ways, we're trying to use this project to translate how some of that more technical science, so to speak, could actually be applied in a physical education setting.
Definitely, anytime you're thinking about movement and getting to a level of movement that would enhance your health, you have to enjoy it at the base level of it, or you're not going to do it at all.
Exactly.
So especially at this time when now we're in a position where we're forced indoors, forced to technology, forced in front of the screen for all of our normal daily activities we would do face-to-face and socializing. Now it's put in front of that screen. And what kind of outcomes and effects is that going to have once we move out from behind the screen again? And are students going to be as willing to move out there and continue their movement? Or is it something they're not going to find enjoyable anymore? And that's where we have to motivate every day for our students.
Yeah, and that's a really good question. So like there are two things that happened this week is like this idea of, does remote instruction have to be online? And so I asked a question like, I don't know if you all are old enough. Do you remember those like really like those tissue paper weekly readers or something that we would get in elementary school? I don't know.
Vaguely.
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I'm like, could that effectively deliver content, meaningful content? Like, does it have to be in a screen? Could it be a podcast? And because to your point, Chris, screen time is an issue. And so because this is a unique situation and we developed our modules for this situation, the reflections that I think we could encourage students to make is think about the times where you most enjoyed physical activity. Within the sort of the social value of physical activity, we can say, being physically active alone does have benefits, but it might not be as enjoyable. So that when we get back together with each other, realize that that's an important thing to consider, that you don't have to stare at a concrete wall at the gym and run on a treadmill. You can go for a walk with some friends. You could, you find things that involve movement with others, and that's where you'll find meaning, or for some of you, most of us.
Definitely. Anytime you have that socialization aspect, it's always going to increase your level of enjoyability for, maybe 90% of our population that we're talking about. Even if you were to play Wii on the TV and you're moving within that game setting. So there is physical activity embedded in a game like that. Maybe that's something more we're teaching towards if it has to be in front of the screen. Something, Dance Dance Revolution, something that might be brought out from the past and brought back in because it has value in this new world that we need. But at the same time, you have to make sure that they understand that when you're playing that Wii bowling with friends or your family, you enjoyed it more than when it was just you in the basement playing Wii bowling.
Yeah. So
Chris, one thing I wanted to just harp on is I think this is a time where especially Standard 5 from Shape America is huge. And I'm personally teaching my students it's important to value activity for the health, enjoyment, interaction with others. It's a life skill. And I always tell my students, hey, I want you to do this today, but if you don't want to do this, do something that's going to make you feel good, whether it's with mom, dad, brother, sister.
Yeah, and I think the challenge for a lot of people is like how do we teach that standard through movement, and so what does that look like? And I think a lot of that comes down to encouraging the experiences that we think would provide a quality reflective opportunity, and having students identify, you know, what the value of that was as it relates to the knowledge within that standard.
And then
How is, I got a question, and Brian Wickeren kind of brought this up. I think that social emotional growth of students is very important. So now that we're not going to be in team activities, we're going to be more emphasizing individual fitness and individual wellness. What's going to happen with that growth of being as part of a team and part of a group and working together?
Yeah. I mean, that's certainly a challenge. I mean, I think that in some ways, moving away from that is probably a relief for a lot of students. And so these opportunities just provide, you know, a space where kids who are sort of fatigued from the team sports experience, especially at the secondary level, have opportunities beyond that. So we might be able to rethink some of the approaches that we've been taking within our traditional face-to-face classes. But certainly through reflection, it's like, what are you missing about, you know, spending time with your team? To have your students identify that, because I don't know about you all, but I wasn't aware of a whole lot when I was in high school. It was just like, I'm just with friends. This is fun, whatever. It's like, I don't understand like principles of sportsmanship and stuff that I'm learning indirectly. It just sort of happens.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is an opportunity to name that stuff that they value, have students like actually realize it.
Have them really reflect on the daily emotions that go on in one's body with their biofeedback. How does it make you feel? How is that going to, and I know my district now, prior to, we're a survivor district of a number of, you know, child suicides. And with that, you know, happening, the amount of mental health, well-being, and support is top notch in my district now, and those resources are now almost taken out from all those students that needed to find that comfort, because now they can't get there in person. Things are being telecommunicated, which we know now. Of course, we'd all love to be sitting in Salt Lake City, Utah, talking right now, but we're not. You know, this is the next best thing, I guess.
Yeah, certainly the provision of health services, wellness services beyond physical education and recess and physical activity is an issue. And one, thankfully, technology can sort of provide an intermediate, but certainly that face-to-face and those human interactions. But, you know, to kind of speak to that, I was talking to a buddy who's a pastor at church, and they're doing virtual services. And what they do helped me sort of think about what we could do as teachers, especially in synchronous times, is they still stand together when they, you know, sing. They still greet the people in their house. They still engage in sort of the physicality of church. And so are there ways that we can continue engaging in physicality even though there's a digital divide? So like simply like waving to somebody, giving a thumbs up, you know, can you give like a high five? I don't know what that really means, but like I haven't quite figured out what it means for physical education, synchronous movement, but like, are there ways that we can engage in physical activity together across the digital divide?
Well, I think even going back a little bit to Brian's
I'm going to
question here,
remove everybody. Can you hear me, guys?
let me check on YouTube. Are we lose?
It's still good.
We're still good on YouTube, Rich. Going back to Brian's question, you know, social distancing, keep 6 feet apart. Obviously, that's going to put a damper on the team sports. The thought of the passing of this virus through the ways it could be spread, how many individuals would want to go out and participate in a basketball, a high-intensity, sweaty situation, wrestling, anytime. And wrestling has their own issues on a yearly basis. So it's definitely, I think, going to have ramifications socially, maybe in the leadership world 10 to 20 years down the line, because we don't have maybe the individuals that started with more of a sense of leadership never had those abilities developed in the social situation. So now they are only able to develop it through the technology interface, and perhaps 10 or 15 years down the line, that's going to hurt us.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of downstream issues that we can't even predict. But I'm looking at what Ross is saying over here.
Feedback on Rich's end, I think. Thank you.
How it would be a disservice to sort of go back to exactly the way things were. I mean, I think in some ways, once we kind of get through this, it should stimulate sort of a rethinking about our approach across the curriculum.
Also, especially here in New York at this time, we've been advised by our teachers union and our local and our state union that we should not have any face-to-face Zoom calls or interactions with students at this point. Of course, at the lower levels in special education, there have been exceptions made, because there's been exceptions made in every scenario that we're going through now. But as far as going into the physical education world, once you really start putting yourself in front of the screen, then dictating and leading on the other end,
Right.
Worst case scenario, there's a serious injury. Best case scenario, mom and dad are looking on the entirety of it to make sure it's appropriate, scope and sequenced wise. There's a lot more oversight that goes into the technology interface than would in your normal teaching scenario gymnasium. So that's a liability thing to take into account, especially in these uncharted territories.
Yeah, and it could cause us to sort of, if our district was for some reason telling you to have those synchronous learnings, if we thought that was appropriate, maybe it could be, a brief discussion about potential psychological benefits. It might not be demonstrating a skill and prompting engagement. It might just be providing an overview of some maybe knowledge or affective content, providing some suggestions for activities, some suggestions for reflection.
I mean, definitely my personal feeling is that every exercise that can and will be videoed is already videoed and on YouTube at this point.
Exactly, right. Like, it's like
So
just curate.
Yeah, unless you're changing a theme at this point, the movement is basically going to be the same. The equipment they have access to at home is going to be the same. So it's really more of, if you wanted to use that interface and face-to-face time as a cognitive or affective reflection with that student, I think that would be much more beneficial than doing some sort of digital teaching to them, because at this point, I don't think the maturity level of the United States public school learner, K through 12, is probably there on the whole to even absorb information digitally as well, or nearly as well as they could in a classroom setting. So without that maturity level of learning there, most people can't handle it at the collegiate level. So you have to be face to face. So trying to trickle that down to a kindergarten or an elementary student, you're not getting any quality work back. Right. You need to have a discussion with them more likely.
Yeah, and just kind of empathizing and supporting them, and depending on your role in the school, maybe you do have a prominent role. PE teachers often do have sort of, given the social nature of the subject, we can engage in more meaningful conversations within our classes. But that gets back to the point of socializing, helping students socialize into an online learning environment. Because of the rapid and unexpected nature of this, I think it went from 0 to 100 miles per hour for us and them, that we weren't able to help students actually transition into that and be able to engage meaningfully. Partially because of the rapid nature of it, partially because we don't know how to do that either.
Of course.
And so we've got research about that. It was a supplemental online curriculum. It was a health-related fitness curriculum that was concurrent with the face-to-face physical activity course. It was meant to be a blended curriculum. The teacher introduced it at the beginning of the year, pushed play, and said, finish it all. And the students that we interviewed were just like, what in the world are we doing here? Like, I thought this was physical education. Why am I sitting online for 20 minutes a week learning stuff that we don't even talk about in class? and it goes on and on. You can imagine what a high school student would think in that scenario. And it's
Yeah.
because it was a one-day introduction. All right, we're going to learn health-related fitness, do this online course. We'll do phys ed in class. It's like, no.
No, yeah.
That's
And our public school system's not set up for that level of learner on the whole. We're providing for every learner out there for every differentiated level. So 60 to 70% of our students could never reach there with the most help for a number of years. So to throw them in a situation like this, you're just knowing that the majority is going to fail in this scenario.
Yeah, I mean, and there are ways we can support them, even though that the depth is beyond what we're probably able to provide right now. But I mean, supporting learner socialization into a more autonomous, self-directed learning is probably the biggest factor that will determine success or failure of the system.
And even, when you think about the use of technology effectively, both Brian and Brad have spoken with a company called Platform. And I know they're out of Massachusetts and upstate New York. I've had conversations with them years ago. They're a great fitness resource. I know they were branching into physical education. I saw them come back with you guys. Talk a little bit about what Platform has there. And because they data track. So the only thing they're really missing is that heart rate piece right now, but I believe they data track across everything else. And if you look at your top universities out there who have these top football programs, they're walking in, they're putting on a device. Almost every step that they're taking is tracked inside that fitness center that they're in. Any sprint times, any run times, every weight and rep is tracked. So is that something we're moving towards in a digitized way at home? And that isn't only for the physical domain, but we have to think about for the other domains as well.
Yeah, I mean, those are definitely questions, and that's a road that needs to go down. We need to go down slowly and as a field. I mean, just because I researched this doesn't mean I believe it's the best thing. I mean, it's just that nobody researches it, so we need to be careful and be intentional about seeing where the data lead us. And one of the questions is do we want to surveil them? Like,
of course,
and then if we do, what are we using to surveil them? Like, what company is it, and what are they doing with those data? Because these are minors, and this is health data.
Of course.
Are teachers aware of the dangers of that? Are parents aware? Are students able to opt out of it? Like, there's a million different questions related to that, and it gets down to, what value does that ultimately provide? Like, who are the students that are going to be required to do that if that's part of the PE program? Why are they being required to do that? And beyond being required to do that, what are they learning through that process?
And I think what's unique about Brian, Brad, and myself is we all use heart rate data in the classroom with our students. So we have that action research over myself 4 or 5 years now, where I've been able to produce a level of movement when students are in my domain of the gymnasium setting. And I know this level of movement has health enhancing effects. And that level of movement is going to lead to brain stimulation and the possibility of future learning. I'm using it as an effort and an engagement piece in my gymnasium to make sure those students are engaged and are giving me the effort while they're in there. So we have that action research, the three of us, that framework is laid in the gym. Now, if we wanted to transfer and say, students, take what you've learned and recreate that on your own, and if you can, you pass because the framework is there. But how many of us in the field have anything close to that kind of framework? It's probably very few.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's obvious that you all have a grasp on this and using it, as it's meant to be used. An issue is that teachers get a grant or their administration has money left over. They buy 150 heart rate monitors, they throw a projector on the wall, and that they call it a day. And it's like, well, maybe it has value for students that are used to that, but you guys are teaching still through this. It's not just making students do something. They understand why they're doing it. They understand what about it is valuable.
And I don't think any device that could or should be worn 24/7 has any place on a child's body. That's really the only benefit of having something like a pedometer, like an activity tracker or a heart rate monitor. It's only to put on when you're exercising. So it's going to give you the feedback and your teacher the feedback. And I see David's comment here, if you remove the PE teacher and students are still making healthy choices, we've done our students a great service. Healthy choice, yes, but what's the level of that healthy choice? What's the level of that movement that they're recreating? If they never reach their heart rate above 120, they're still going to be at a greater risk for heart disease, no matter how much walking they did.
On the flip side of that, we know that exercise intensity is highly correlated with what we call valence, or sort of emotional response, or the level of positive. With the high level of sedentary behavior and really PE as a behavior change now, we have to be careful about requiring certain MVPA levels, because it might actually turn out to be a negative and physically painful experience for some students that could have a negative impact on their future physical activity. So
as far as MVPA goes, the CDC says it's 50% of your max heart rate. So that's pretty much a speed walk for anybody. Anybody who would find that to be negatively, detrimental to their psychology of movement, then, they have a greater issue that needs to be underlined and talked about as far as movement is concerned. Because you talk about 105 beats, some people could do that standing up, if that's what the CDC recommends. And that's what we would, think to go by.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
and
it's
then
something.
Sorry, and Chris, on that note, when I'm teaching, it's unbelievable to have students learn when they're wearing the heart rate monitor that just simply walking does get them in their zone, and then that helps get it in their head that walking is good exercise.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, it's showing students the value of physical activity. It's just a consideration, because depending on where that setting is, and that's where the technological pedagogical knowledge comes in. You guys know how to use the heart rate monitors. They're accurately set. They're personalized. They're the even choosing the CDC recommended zones is a thing that we would assume teachers would do, but you can't assume that. And so I'm not saying you all are doing anything wrong. I'm saying a consideration that teachers need to make is what level they're requiring students or encouraging students to achieve, and what impact that might have on the enjoyment or not of that activity.
And I would also think the research is probably very thin on what even the CDC is recommending at this point. So I think overall there needs to be a ton of research in this area if it's something we're going to move forward with, because like you said, there's different ways to calculate that. There's different ways to get those thresholds. There's different bodies out there who are able and not able to do different things. So, a lot of intense research should be now poured into this area if this is something that's going to be cyclical in nature.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I think I remember seeing on Twitter somewhere that there was a systematic review just conducted that gets us closer to actually understanding what health enhancing physical activity actually is in terms of time and intensity. It's sort of a vague concept historically where here and there's information and disconnected research, but now I think there's a large enough body where the systematic review gives a pretty good picture of what is required at what age level for a certain level of positive outcome. And so from that's going to be a formative paper. And I think the WHO, the World Health Organization, the CDC, all these other organizations are probably latch onto that with their new recommendations coming up. So it's something to pay attention to. And that's where the pedagogy of using technology is so important, because there are so many decisions beyond just using technology that need to be addressed. So
Ross even made the comment there, the reflection piece, that's huge. And that's the only way you're going to truly find out that psychological impingement to any kind of movement somebody would have, is you have to talk them through it.
Yeah, and there might be value some days in letting students engage at their own, exertion level and having them reflect on that. Was that autonomy liberating and enjoyable for you because you were given the freedom? Do you think that you engaged to a level that was enhancing for you? there's a lot of different reflective questions, and Ross brings up a good point. And so with reflection, there might be also space for what we're requiring in terms of intensity, in terms of engagement as teachers. But
Sorry, Brian, did I interrupt you, Brian?
Well, just another thing I wanted to mention is, I think another appropriate practice from teachers using heart rate technology is, of course, every student's different. Everybody's body is different, and you need to differentiate for each user. So, of course, we're never going to know what their true maximum heart rate is, but I could have my students wear them for 2 or 3 weeks, pull up a report to see what their peak heart rate was within that range. And then you could kind of bring the toggle down or up based on what that student showed their body can physiologically handle. And then that way, per se, each student's heart rate profile can be differentiated to their needs.
Well, that goes into a little bit of the action research piece that each of us have a little bit of. We have this little basic framework of it. It's almost bringing all of our data together in a central point to show that this level of movement is achievable inside the gymnasium. Does that have any real health enhancing effects? Can you then sell that to the student? You have golfers out there that are overweight. You have golfers out there that'll run the course. They're playing the same game, but they're doing it at different intensities. Did the person who was overweight and walked the course his or her entire life, did they die at 70? Or the person who jogged it died at 95? Is that a quality of life conversation that goes into a public school education? We don't know that yet.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the umbrella there is the educated value of what we do. Is it more than just having kids play and rehearse and, disconnected skill development and I don't know if I learned a whole lot in my PE class, so that's kind of why I'm doing this. It's like, why is this valuable? What contribution does a baseline level of fitness have? It took me, when I got married to my wife, I was a PE teacher for 3 years, and we walked up to the top of Mount Washington, hiked it. I don't know if you guys are New Hampshire, so the White Mountains.
I've seen it.
It's a big hike, it's, 14, 15 miles. But there's also a road there. And my wife and I are sweating. We just hiked for 4 hours, ate lunch, and took a picture at the top of the mountain. And we see people in flip-flops and Hawaiian shirts taking the same picture. I'm like, that's why we're active. That's why you're active. So you can walk up the mountain if you want to walk up the mountain, or whatever it might be. Give yourself freedom. We think that freedom is like watching however much Netflix we want. But if you can't go out and pitch a ball with the neighbor kid or your son or daughter, are you really free? There's freedom in fitness in a baseline level of movement ability. And I think the education piece that we provide students can help that understand that, you keep doing this, what you think is free is going to put you this is not freedom.
It's going to limit you.
It's limitation.
Oh, of course. Of course.
And the language that we use needs to be sensitive, and the experience that we provide need to be, valuable. But how are we showing students the value of physical activity and fitness is a question we all need to ask.
For sure.
See, and I always like to relate the intensity of exercise to the cognitive benefits that research continually shows on. Emotionally, it makes them happier, less stressed. Academically, there's better results and all of that stuff. I love to kind of share that with my students to get them to buy in some more.
And help them recognize it. It's like, why do, you go for a run, it's before dinner. It's like, man, I'm pretty talkative. I'm pretty engaged. Like, that was really fun family time. It's like, yeah. Because
it didn't magically happen.
Yeah, it's not magic. It's like you went for a walk. It's like, but again, me being a dope in high school, and a lot of people could probably relate. It's like, you're not thinking about that. It's just like, oh, that was fun. Thanks for talking to me today. It's like, no, I was engaged with my family. We were asking questions. We were laughing because the mood was better. The brain was a little bit clearer. The body felt a little bit relief.
Yep.
I know personally here, I'm in Bucks County, PA right now, Chad.
Yeah, man. Lancaster.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I'm from New York, but I'm staying with my in-laws right now.
Nice.
Sheltered away here. But going back to Shannon's point here, she talks about establishing an individual baseline for heart rate data to mean anything to each child, of course. And that is part of the action research that the three of us on the screen have, is we have a systematic way to establish a student's resting or ambient heart rate, whatever they can achieve while they're awake. And then we have a systematic process of trying to create a max heart rate situation in a non-offensive way, I would put it. And that, at least in my gym, is through a pacer test, but it's a team pacer test. So they're not running each lap by themselves. It's a relay race. It's really loose. It's really fun. We might do that 3 or 4 times with the same group of students to really try and set what's their max going to be in an output situation in my gym. And that's all I'm going to base it on, is what they could, replicate feasibly in the best standardized sense we can get, replicating that in the gym. And I found that to be the shuttle run.
Yeah, I mean, even that idea just blows my mind, of like a collaborative fitness test. I mean, I've been in the game for 11, 12 years and never heard that. Like, are you telling people that? Like,
oh yeah,
share that.
we all do stuff like that. Yeah,
share that with other people, though, because people like rage against fitness tests, in a lot of ways for good reason. People subscribe to it blindly in a lot of ways for not good reasons. It's like, how can we make this a more enjoyable experience? And there are different fitness assessments than FitnessGram that are probably, that can be appropriate as well. And we're sort of isolated to that model, but Pacer's a common test, and doing it collaboratively, man, that sounds cool.
The
More
kids
people
love
need
it.
to hear about that.
No, the kids love it at every age that you just let them have a partner or 2 partners or 3 partners. And then what it really does is it allows those students who will never experience a lap 30 or 40, because they would never get there individually.
Right.
As a team, they can now feel what that timing is like and what that pace needs to be. And they may never get there again. And that's okay. But they got there a couple times this year. And now
they did it together.
And they did it together.
Yeah.
And then what that allows on the back end as the teacher is now we're seeing a nice gradual increase in that max heart rate, instead of a student sprinting, spiking, dropping down, recovering, spiking, recovering. You're now going to see that nice gradual, and we'll do, teams of 3, we'll do 60, 45 laps. Everybody did 15 laps today, and we take a look at the data afterwards. We share that around, and they can see for themselves what I achieved.
Yeah, and that's even a layer of teacher knowledge that I think is maybe lacking in a lot of ways, is like how to translate those data. It's like one thing to get it. It's one thing to use a heart rate monitor or a device appropriately, develop the routines, make it engaging, enjoyable, but then you get this pile of data and it's like, well, what do you do with that? How do you use that to prompt reflection? How do you use that to stimulate, an extension of knowledge? I mean, there's a lot of layers to that, and it comes up to Pete as well. Like we need to help translate that for graduates coming right out, and not take, 4 years of action research or more to be able to figure that out. And then how many kids miss out on opportunity when, if, some of these things are addressed at the Pete level, then more teachers are coming out prepared.
Exactly. And I know Ross, he's a big proponent. When Ross does it with his students, everything he does, he labels, then puts it up as a reflective piece on the screen.
Yeah.
It's all about that reflecting piece. And then can I look at my own data and see on my own chart, okay, during that lap 40, when I was feeling really terrible, my heart was at 205. And Mr. C put up on the board that here's my exemplar, and you should have been feeling, really intense at lap 40. And that's even the exemplar. So now they could take it off the screen. They have it, their own individualized one in front of them, and correlating that data and just making that connection with the student. They might never want to get to that level again, and that's okay. But we charted it, we did it accurately, we shared and reflected it with them.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I wonder on the other end of that is like, you dropped out here, look what your heart rate was. What was uncomfortable? What were you actually feeling like? Is that, you might have been able to go a little bit longer. Maybe that, there is a natural level of discomfort as you begin to exert, beyond your normal capacity. Is that something that you think you could continue to do if it, I don't know, but.
And I think now through this integrated platform, especially Google Classrooms, I want to be able to take those graphs, even if it was graphs they did with me a couple months ago in school, I want to now push them right to their Google Classroom, put them in their account, let them comment on them. Maybe they can reflect back to what they did. I might give them a time agenda. I might label the map, the heart rate graph as it goes, and just jog their memory of what they did. And then I might have them write a few reflection questions underneath, right in the Google form, and they could send that right back. So now this is where
That's what I
the next
do.
level of thinking is going, is how can we integrate these two things?
Yeah, and I mean, what do you all? Is there any sort of outreach to parents? I mean, that's another layer in itself. But like, I wonder if a simple way of sort of inviting them into all this, or at least helping them understand what's the data say, might be.
Oh, definitely. I mean, especially at the elementary level, the K through 3, but that's not the content we're really talking about here. We're talking about secondary levels.
Yeah.
So as far as Brian and Brad, how much interaction with the parents you might have at a 4th and 5th grade level through Google Classrooms, it's still very limited for me. At the lower grades, I'm just emailing mom and dad. They're the ones signing up for these classes and doing it with their child. But as they get older, there's a little bit of separation. But as high school goes, I'm sure it's completely separate almost.
Yeah, it is. I think a lot of it depends on the demographics you teach. I teach in like a high poverty area. So a lot of the parents are very busy, maybe working 2 or 3 jobs. But right now, this system is set up to where the parents get a daily email of just a quick summary of what their son or daughter did in class. And it's funny you asked that because I'm still trying to be creative and unique in terms of relaying what that data means to the parents, because I'm sure a lot of the parents don't know what an average heart rate means or what target heart rate zone means and stuff like that. So as of right now, it's getting introduced to them, but I think personally I need to find ways to be a little bit more specific to each data point.
And as this conversation continues, I can see some parallels, between what you might do to invite parents into understanding technology from a face-to-face, but also in an online setting. I see Dan asked about advocacy. This type of communication with parents and inviting them to the gym and sharing things is a great advocacy tool to show them meaning. In the same way, if we're designing online content, you're putting that out there for the world to see. And so talk about advocacy or not, it goes both ways. If it's not quality, it's not doing us any favors. And so, we throw a bunch of stuff up online, everybody's surviving, but after this, we need to start distilling that into more educative content, more sequential content, more sort of coherent, so that it can actually be a positive illustration and not just a survival stopgap.
And at this point, I would think the Google AI bots could just put together a whole scope and sequence for everybody, because they have every document that's ever been created by an educator at this point.
Well, and I mean, you want to get in the future, it's like we can't limit what it's going to look like with the level of technology right now. The challenge will be to find a balance between optimizing technology while maintaining humanity. Right. And the technology stuff that I read, it really, a computer we are limited as teachers. The computer provides that, and technology provides an extension of skill and opportunity and experience. And so really the obvious solution is a combination of the two. It extends our ability, but also maintains the human experience and interaction that's so valuable to the socializing experience. And so technology should be an augmentation. It should never replace a teacher. And I would argue that every teacher should consider using it, at least in some way. Because you're better for it. The students are better for it.
And it really comes down to a whole overhaul of the educational system to really make it more like the medical establishment, where all the parts are interconnected and working, and that computer with the doctor is to extend their knowledge and not inhibit their ability to deliver that knowledge.
Hey guys, I hate to be the bearer of bad goes. But this is what happens when you get a group of quality PE teachers together. We could go on all night, I believe.
I
Oh
think
man,
so.
let's go.
Up at some
I
point.
love it.
So, thank all of you for the information and the on the table is great tonight. A lot of good comments, ideas. This has been our big session today. What do you think, guys?
Well, thank you so much, Rich. Thank you, Chad, for coming on. We'd love to have you back. We don't know how long this is going to go on. We might do it, another 10 weeks at this point. So we'd love to have you back. We love your ideas tonight. And just a little housekeeping. All the information you can put in the chat to get in touch with Chad. He's also on Twitter. Rich, I hope, can add all of our information into the comment section below the chat. Also, Rich is giving away a Sensor 2.0. So if your email's in our chat right now, you'll be eligible for that. I've only seen one, which was Brian, and I think he left us. And next week, we have Ross, our very own Ross Chakrian, Mr. C, coming on, and he's going to just deliver everything that he's been experiencing down there in Maryland in his new position at his elementary school. Can't wait to hear from him and share his wealth of knowledge. So I just thank everybody again for this. This is awesome, I think.
Feel
Yeah,
free to
thanks,
reach
guys.
out anytime about online PE or anything. I'm happy to help, and just want to say thanks to you all for inviting me. I love talking shop. I learned a lot. It's great to just kind of refine ideas in real time, and so thanks for indulging me. And I'm happy to talk with you guys anytime. So just let me know.
Thanks so much. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks again for the resources you and the team have put together. Appreciate it.
Oh, it's our pleasure.
Great resources. Rich, let's give a sensor to Brian, Mr. Yankee, and I think Shannon deserves one. Is Shannon here? I think Shannon's here. Let's give out a couple of sensors tonight, Mr. Rich. We'll get in contact with those people.
Yeah, just have them send me their email.
These
And
are all
take care.
top quality people. Thank you so much, guys. Have a great night. Stay safe.
Sign off.
All right, good night. Thank you.